Yes, he did.
Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Sewer rates might be going up. Among the topics we'll be discussing on this edition of Donnybrook. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's meet the panelists and then dig into the subjects. Hey, let's say hello once again to Sarah Fenske. She's the executive editor of the Riverfront Times and its sister publications, and she's sitting in for Wendy Weiss, who's taking the week off. Bill McClellan from STLtoday.com and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Ray Hartmann, founder of the Riverfront Times, and of course also Ray Hartmann's St. Louis Living on Substack. And Mr. Alvin Reid, who is with the St. Louis American. And Ray, I know it's St.
Louis Insider.
St. Louis Insider, not living.
It's
I'm
living.
Sorry.
It's I'm fine. I'm still living, I guess.
No, it's
no.
Thank you.
Contrary to the rumors.
All right, sorry for the mistake, Alvin.
No, it's all good.
You are with the St. Louis American, correct?
I am.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. I got that right.
Wait,
and he's living.
Wait, what do you know? Right.
And he's very much alive over there.
All right. Well, we're off to a great start. Let me ask you about MSD. After last week's program, the Metropolitan Sewer District decided to put 2 ballot measures on the April agenda for voters to consider. One has to do with wastewater, and it would increase the rates 32% from about $57 to $75 a month, not per year. Then there's also stormwater, and to improve that, there'd be about $2 tax per month for a home that's worth $176,000 for about $25 a year. Now, this is at a time when we know that most Americans don't have $600 for an emergency. This is a lot of money that St. Louisans are going to be forking over. Do you think they're going to approve it? Should they approve those increases?
Okay, well, you know, Reed Creek runs, by my house, and I'm very familiar. It's beautiful, when it storms and the storm water goes by. It's kind of like fascinating, So I'm close to this creek issue, literally and figuratively. All right, now I know this is a dangerous game to play, but I'm thinking vote no on that highest rate increase, because I think they will mysteriously find a way to not charge people this much money. The county and the city are both cutting taxes for seniors because they can't afford this and they can't afford that. And, but they're going to let this fly? I don't think so. I think something will happen that the rate would not go up that much. It's going to go up, but I would call their bluff.
Well, I think that could be catastrophic, Alvin. I mean, of all the bluffs to call, the one on water for your home and storm water, it just seems like this is one of those things that you have to say, geez, I hate to pay more, but I have to. I mean, I'll be voting yes. I don't want to call there. I'm sitting there with nothing. I don't want to say call you.
All right, I know.
I'm kind of leaning toward where Alvin is. But I have to say, because I wrote about this, and they had a choice between a 24% and a 32% increase, and they really, shout out to my friends at the Missouri Consumers Council, John Kaufman, really fought the good fight on this. And you could be in a situation where the choice, it's like, you remember the old National Lampoon magazine, buy this magazine or we'll shoot this dog, that they had in 77. Maybe that's too old. But they may be in a position where they're basically putting a gun to everybody's head saying, if you don't vote for this, you're going to have it triple.
No, they're not triple. It'll go to 35%.
Well, that's what they say. I guess we got to get closer to see what the choice is, personally. I'm kind of leaning to where Alvin is, but I could change my mind if they really are serious about
let me ask you this. If the taxpayers don't have much money, and they really don't, I mean, let's face it, there are some people who are living the good life, but not all. But if the city has $250 million from Stan Kroenke, and the county has another what, $169 million. Why not at least take a portion of that to at least defray the costs of the sewers for the taxpayers who can't afford it?
Well, because
why not?
It's just heartbreaking. Psychologically, like, St. Louis needs a win. It's like, oh, we got all this money from Stan Kroenke, and we're going to, like, slightly lower your sewer bill. That's just like, we would become a national joke.
Right, Charlie. If you got a lot of money, all of a sudden you inherited some money, you could build a nice deck on your house. It would be fun and improve your quality of life. Or you could redo the plumbing. I mean, you'd have that new deck.
Do you know what? Beth and I would redo the plumbing.
Yes, you would.
Because we are prudent, we are adults, and we know that sewers, while not sexy, they are extremely important.
Charlie, the headline we say, St. Louis literally flush that money down the toilet. I mean,
that is good. That's
you
good.
Can't escape that.
This region
Plus,
needs
another
a
thing.
win.
But these leaders don't know how to spend the Kroenke money.
Charlie,
they don't know how to spend it. I'm telling you, you can lower the bills for the St. Louis.
Charlie, if we give a portion to MSD, that means we're giving a portion to the president and CEO of MSD. The executives are probably making six figures. I'm against that.
And Charlie, real simple. If fixing the sewers with the Kroenke money is the adult position, hand me a binky. I mean, really.
Bill, this program is our last for 2 weeks.
We make it through.
Next week when we're off the air, it's not because of things we said or that I messed up with. Bill, I want to ask you about St. Charles. There was a proposal now tabled that would have said no to migrants coming to the area. As you know, there are groups of St. Louisans led by Attorney Jerry Schlichter and others who are going to places like New York and Chicago and saying, hey, let's bring the Venezuelans and the Haitians and the Mexicans to St. Louis, since some of these towns are overrun with migrants. But now in St. Charles, there was a measure that said, no, we don't want them coming to St. Louis for various reasons. What do you make of all this?
Oh, I thought it spoke. I'd be embarrassed if I were living in St. Charles right now. I mean, you have State Senator Bill Eigel going around talking about he'd like to burn books with a flamethrower on the governor's mansion, and this Mr.
Brazel, Joe Brazel. Member of the County
Council. He'd be
Council.
offended if I called him Mr. Brazil. But Mr. Brazel talking about he doesn't want St. Louis to accept immigrants, not even St. Charles. And these politicians don't do this in a vacuum. I mean, somebody like Brazel thinks that this is a popular stand to be against Hispanics legal coming into St. Louis, not even St. Charles. I thought it was a very dark day for St. Charles.
I do agree with you. I mean, give us you're tired, you're hungry, you're poor, you're huddled masses. Not here, said St. Charles. But the point you made about how are you going to speak for the entire region? You know, how are you going to even voice the words? We don't even want them in St. Louis. And as Mayor Jones said, like, well, if they don't want them, come to St. Louis. Right. And I think that was a very, not just populist stand on her part, but just seriously. I mean, that's some heartless stuff when you go there.
And it was so ignorant. You know, he framed it like we don't want people coming here illegally, but pointed to some programs that people are coming legally through. This whole effort that the International Institute is involved in, this is all legal immigration. The guy doesn't even know what he's talking about.
Well, but he knows why he's talking about it, and that's it's political community theater. It was a resolution. It had no teeth to it. But here we are talking about it, which is the intent. Well, and I'm not criticizing the subject. It's what people. But the point is, we're talking about it. Okay. But it's embarrassing. But it got its intended effect.
But I don't think it reflects poorly on St. Charles. Why? Do you know that St. Charles has more Mexican Americans than St. Louis City?
Yes.
So it doesn't need lectures from the city on immigration or whatever. But I do think there is a problem right now in places like Boston, New York, and Chicago where they are overrun, and maybe people like Brazel, and again, I am pro-immigrant, we need more in our area. Maybe Brazel's afraid that immigrants here will be living in train stations or ERs or police stations as they are now in...
Charlie, this is not just a blanket you know, we're going to send buses down and pick people up. This is a workable program of bringing in limited numbers of legal immigrants.
Now, you know, legal does mean you cross the border with your family illegally, but then you declared asylum. So you're legally in the country.
Fine.
Yes, you're legally in the
Fine.
Right.
We need them. We need people like this. They
agree with that.
strengthen the fabric of our community, and of all places in the country,
But there's a
we need
cost,
them.
and if anyone can mess it up, we can.
Well, you talk about this being overrun, which, yes, we are seeing some cities that are struggling to deal with the influx. St. Louis is so the opposite of that. We're like spending money to try to get immigrants to come here. They don't want to come here because they're worried about running into somebody like Joe Brazell, who's like, hey, you know, get off my lawn.
Yeah. And Joe Brazell has made no arguments that I've heard of about Ukrainians not coming.
That's interesting, yeah.
You know,
Do we have Ukrainians coming here? We have some, right?
Yeah,
but they're refugees.
But I mean, he's after this one particular program. I thought it was a very bad look for St. Charles.
Okay, well, all right. Can I just real quick? All right, I'm all for, you know, immigrants coming to the St. Louis area. I'm all for. I wish St. Charles would not have done this. I'm all for it. I think it's a good thing. Until they tell me, Alvin, we're going to put the Latino shelter on your street. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking like, oh, man, you know, do I really want the Latino shelter on my street? So I'm not defending St. Charles, but boy, once you break it down to like your block, just like homeless people, now all of a sudden you're kind of thinking like,
I disagree with that.
All right. And this is a program where no one's talking about shelters. They're talking about hooking them up with jobs and helping them get apartments. Again, we are nowhere close to being overrun.
No, we
here.
need to,
I agree.
Need to reach
and
out.
for the record, I am totally for immigration, and we need more people. Yeah.
Me too.
Okay. Sarah Fenske, thank you very much for joining us. I want to ask you about a report that came out, I guess, yesterday by the Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, in Missouri. And it was a look, once again, down memory lane for Kim Gardner, the embattled circuit attorney who resigned earlier this year. And I thought, wow, I already saw that movie. Is this kind of redundant? What do you think?
I was glad that he released this report. I know all of you county residents, you guys may have moved on psychologically from the Kim Gardner era, but as a city resident, you know, we still have a lot of questions about what was happening during her tenure, what exactly was she doing, and specifically this nursing program that basically led to her resigning in disgrace. She refused to ever answer any questions about how long she was enrolled at St. Louis University and how intensive this program was. Now, thanks to Bailey's report, for the first time, we have those answers. There were reporters that were clamoring, asking him questions, and he kept saying, I'm going to release a final report, just be patient. I'm glad he did. In the interest of transparency, we deserve to know she spent almost 2 years in this program at the time that we were paying her to be our full-time circuit attorney.
As a county alien,
really,
from our studios in the city,
yes,
I spent a couple minutes in the city.
You
once
visitors
upon a time,
just popping in.
I seem to remember. First of all, we in the county will take your Kim Gardner and raise you Sam Page. You know, if you want to talk.
That's not fair.
Ray, I know you don't like Sam Page.
But that's
Kim Gardner
come on now.
tore her system down.
No, I'm talking about the nursing thing versus the distraction of nursing versus his
moonlighting.
passion, his moonlighting.
Right.
I'm talking about that moonlighting. No, I'm not comparing them.
Right.
I'm saying we'll take your nursing thing and raise you a Sam Page doing anesthesia. Anesthesiology is a side hustle, but as far as I'm concerned, you know, once again, this is, in my mind, it's theater. I mean, he's got a tough re-election campaign, Andrew Bailey,
but should she be prosecuted?
No,
he raises that possibility.
No.
Because the same reason that they really couldn't throw her off her job. It said, like, you could just do your job, like, quote-unquote criminally wrong, but it's not criminal.
No, well, I mean, the law says
it really
that she's
isn't.
supposed to devote her
it's gone, okay?
Yeah.
She's gone.
I'm going to quote the mayor again, too. Once again, Mary Jo, she said, like, well, the unelected attorney general is in an election cycle, and he's got to do something to make it tell the people I'm doing something every day, because you don't hear from him unless it's some nonsense like this.
So let me get this right. The woman who prosecuted Eric Greitens for a phone call and McClellan for standing in front of his house
with a gun.
Yeah.
He
didn't shoot anybody.
standing in front of his house.
Anybody.
Oh, that's nice of him.
She is beyond prosecution.
Oh, my God.
She dropped 25,000 cases.
No, there was no law broken. I'm sorry.
And by the way, she, her record is not going to be well remembered, to put it mildly, as a prosecutor. But that has nothing to do. There's no criminality here. And I'm sorry.
Sarah points out, she had a side hustle.
Oh, like I said, that's what the page.
One thing that's really good about Bailey releasing this report is, in the back of my mind, I've always been afraid that Kim Gardner could run again. And, remember, she was a disaster in her first term, and she was still reelected. So maybe this kind of puts a stake through the heart of the idea of Kim Gardner returning.
Next topic, Metrolink. You're writing in this week's Riverfront Times, online and in the print edition, that riders at Metrolink are not happy with these single cars, which is bi-state's answer to money problems. They said, okay, instead of having a train of 2 or 3 cars, let's try one, see how it works. And what's the result, Sarah Fenske?
Well, the riders are livid. I think part of what happened is Metro announced that they were going to do this as this pilot project. And this pilot project is now in its 7th week. And people are saying, okay, when is this thing going to wrap up? Because I think they had a phrase like, they are squashed like sardines in these cars right now. And it's very hard to get in and out properly. If you have a bicycle, there's only one little spot where that can go. There's hardly any room for it. People are pushing their way in. Riders say this has been a disaster. And Metro Transit has not answered questions up until this point when we reached out to them to say, when is this thing going to wrap up? So it's been an experiment that I would say has been a failed experiment.
Yeah, but that's how it is in Boston, New York, and Paris.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I feel bad, because I lived in the East Coast and there were periods of the day where it was really crowded. But with that being said, it is just a trial run, and if it takes you from, we used to always have 3 cars, and now we'll have 2, then that works for me. I mean, you gotta figure out if it'll work or not.
Well, doesn't it seem though that if it's clearly not working, I mean, if people are crowding in, if the story mentioned one of the drivers saying that people can't get in the doors.
Yeah, and people with wheelchairs in particular are having trouble getting in.
Well, once you see that it's not working, isn't it easy to say, okay, this was a good idea, but we're going to drop it? Because it doesn't cost more to run 2 cars than 1 car, and you only have 1 engineer. That was the word I was looking for, an engineer. So I don't know why they've gone on for 7 weeks.
Well, I don't know the specific. It was good reporting by you folks in the city, but I think that you got to cut them a little slack, in the sense that my understanding is certainly one solution is to do this, but only do it in off-peak hours. I don't know how they're doing it, and I think, given that it's a pilot project, you got to at least give them a little time to see, because it does, if you're talking about off-peak hours, if you're talking about peak, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's great that you pointed out the 70 folks that are opposed on Facebook, which is substantial. But if it were off-peak hours, that it does make the trains more secure. There's a lot of reasons to do this if they can calibrate it right. And so I don't think we should just make a rash decision.
Well, I will say, if it's not this, I don't know what it's going to be, because I know you subscribe to Governing Magazine. They had an article 2 days ago that said all of these mass transit systems across the country are going over a fiscal cliff, and they don't know what to do. They're just losing so much money. Alvin, Reid, I want to ask you about the homicide in Clayton. First one since 2006 on Monday. What did you think of the press coverage?
Well, I thought it was over the top on the first day. But speaking to the veteran Bill McClellan, who was also entertained by the story and gunned down
before sunup.
Right, where is the, okay, but a lot of news coverage, a lot of, Clayton, we haven't had a murder in this line, we haven't had a murder. There are a lot of places that haven't had, murders, but it just seemed a little bit pretentious to me. Now, I think some details are coming out that are kind of alarming, so I'm not making fun of the situation, I'm just kind of making fun of the first day coverage. And I think, you take for granted that, there's a 20% drop in the murder rate in the city of St. Louis, and nobody really cares because why? Well, still a whole bunch of people still getting murdered in the city of St. Louis. But everybody's kind of blind to that. But one person gets killed in Clayton, and here we go.
And they called the Major Case Squad on Monday, and that's, of course, the community resource that cities can call upon for help in major cases. They had 25 detectives working on it. There are only 12 homicide detectives in St. Louis City.
I didn't realize that. I mean, that's
I mean, the moral of the story is, like, if you're going to commit murder, don't do it in Clayton. Like, they're going to shut that down.
Well,
you know, it's the same principle, though, in the city. I mean, we do have a fair amount of murders, and yet if something happens in one of the nicer neighborhoods, that automatically gets a lot of attention. I don't blame the news media for its biases. It's surprising when it happens in a place where you don't expect it. Well, it is interesting the dichotomy between the resources put into this one versus if the same crime had happened in, say, Deep South City.
But why doesn't St. Louis City call on the Major Case Squad for its murders?
Well, I don't think that the St. Louis Police Department feels they need the Major Case Squad. Oh. I mean, the Major Case Squad was really developed for the smaller communities.
I don't agree. I mean, I don't think that if it's true, you know, I don't think that's great. I mean, because given the number of unsolved major crimes and murders that we have, but it is.
Well,
I would say, as far as
you use the Major Case Squad,
I think the better
city crime rate, it would just be another city agency.
I understand,
but you
I
look
think
at it this way. Clayton, population 17,000, has 5 homicide detectives. St. Louis City, population 286,000, has 12.
Well, when you say 5 homicide detectives, maybe 5 detectives who work on homicide.
I think what I find
not devoted to nothing but homicide like the ones in the city.
Yeah, I mean, what have they been doing since 2006? There's been no homicide.
This has been an issue. This has been a Donnybrook issue over as long as we've had the show. I mean, the disparate coverage. What I think really the media needs to look in the mirror about is not, I understand if it's in a rich neighborhood or it's whatever, it's going to be more newsworthy. It's the dehumanization of the coverage in North St. Louis and places that we just sort of write off. So we'll tell, I understand the news aspect, but we'll tell the human story down to the relatives, to everything about a victim in Clayton or wherever. And the same news media, it's like, somebody's murdered in North St. Louis, and nobody makes that effort.
Well, we try, Ray. I mean, people are out there trying to do this, and often people don't want to talk to the media because they're afraid the killer is still out there.
Killer probably is still out there.
Okay, I get that.
So it is in a situation where the media is too crass. I mean, I've read and written some stories about families on the north side devastated by homicides.
Hey, Ray, I want to get to a topic that I know that you want to sink your teeth into, and this is Senator Bill Eigel saw something prepared by the National Governors Association. It was a sit-down meeting, barbecue being consumed by Republican Governor of Missouri, Mike Parson, and Democratic Governor of Kansas, Laura Kelly. And they talked about how they disagree on some issues, but they want to work together. Eigel said, no way should Republicans be sitting down and enjoying barbecue and discussing things in a civil way with Democrats.
Well, we've talked about political theater a lot tonight, and there's no question that strategically it's a smart move for Bill Eigel in this environment. I would go as far as to say this. This is not a fire drill, it's a fire. You look at the stuff nationally, the Hitler impersonation Trump's been doing the last week, and this dovetails with that. Bill Eigel is not a nice human being. It's got nothing to do with his politics. To be offended and to call out the governor of your own party for the crime of trying to find common ground with the moderate Democratic governor of Kansas City is beneath contempt. And I would argue that, and I'll even put, unlike Mike Keogh, unlike even Jay Ashcroft, a guy like Bill Eigel and his pal Bob Onder, when they do this kind of stuff, they are dangerous. And we need to start understanding they're dangerous.
Well, Ray, that goes to the electorate. I mean, you know, Bill Eigel, this has been Bill Eigel's playbook.
But he's dangerous.
Well, you might be dangerous, but it's the people who vote for him and the people who go, that's a very good point, that are at fault here.
And the rest of us need to call him out.
Well, I agree. I mean, I don't think Cori Bush is dangerous. I know I'm saying that, but people say that,
Right.
okay? And I'm like, well, you know, yeah, I disagree with a lot.
I disagree with a lot.
But I'm just saying, like, you know, but I don't list her as dangerous. Now, this guy the reason he's not dangerous is because he's just a clown. I'm sorry.
He could win.
He
Don't
could
think he
win.
could
Well,
win, and then he's dangerous.
Right. If he's the governor of Missouri.
He could win.
But maybe he's sly like a fox. He goes, I'm going to do something crazy, and in the Howard Stern, Donald Trump tradition, people like Brennan are going to bring it up, and I'll get my name out there on television.
I said it's effective, but he's dangerous. And let me tell you something.
But I think that's what I'm saying. Like, I just think, yeah, sometimes you give people too much credit, and that's too much credit. He's just
I disagree.
whatever.
I
right?
think
he ain't that smart.
I tell you what.
I'm not going to give him that much credit.
If we could assume that Donald Trump is not going to get reelected and that we're not going to be living in a dictatorship, then people like Bill Eigel wouldn't be dangerous. But that we can't make.
Are you going to be writing about that on St. Louis Insider on Substack?
I doubt it.
Oh. I was trying to get the name in there.
I did write about Greater St. Louis.
Hey, let's go to the mailbag and see what people had to say about last week's program. I was offended with your evaluation of the failure of the Manchester annexation. There were many reasons for the unincorporated voters to vote no, but it was never because we are against change. My no vote was due to the considerably higher real and personal property taxes for another layer of government providing few new benefits, while the current Manchester residents would have received a decrease in similar taxes. That from John Daniel Milan. I heard your comments concerning Manchester's attempt to annex part of the county. Several of you thought it should have passed. Residents in the area disagreed. Why? Maybe it had to do with the promise that those being annexed would save money. But when asked to show exactly how this would happen, no explanation was forthcoming. While some of you said change might have been the reason it didn't pass, maybe it really came down to truthfulness. That from Jamie P. Drymeyer. You can write us, care of 9PBS. Use the zip code 63108. We love those emails, Donnybrook@9pbs.org. And using Thread or X, use the hashtag DonnybrookSTL. Don't forget to call the 9 line at 314-512-9094. And listen to us on your favorite podcast source, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. Thanks to Sarah Fenske for sitting in for Wendy Weiss. Thank you, Sarah. Next week, we're going to be enjoying Thanksgiving with our families, and I'm sure you will too. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. See you then.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Programming on 9PBS is proudly supported by the Sue and Lynn Schneider Charitable Fund.
Can't get enough Donnybrook? Join us for Donny Bash at the Sheldon Concert Hall on April 11th. Choice tickets are still available at 9pbs.org/Donnybrook.